self-love's not selfish, it's not narcissism. I mean, all the things that we've heard, but yet there still seems to be this sense of feeling a little bit guilty about self-love, or all the things that our culture and other things have trained us to not really be able to feel comfortable doing that. So I'm grateful to be able to be here and help be a voice for that space, and hopefully it can help people along the way.
Well, I think you nailed it on the head just there. Like that guilt to allow ourselves to be loving of ourselves. It's like we are so inbred to like not love ourselves. We want this love from the outside world, but we're unwilling to give it to ourselves. And I don't understand where that stems from, why we're just kind of like, we don't want to be our own champion. And we're looking outside of us for these champions. But like you said, it's not selfish. My mentor actually tells me this all the time. She's like, be self-interested. It's not selfish, it's self-interested. And so that's an interesting perspective. Like we have to embrace ourselves. We have to love ourselves to be able to give love to anyone else, let alone receive it.
Yeah. Totally agree. So in my opinion, it's like the exact opposite, right? It's actually, if we're not self-loving, if we're not self-inquiring, and we're not curious about ourselves, that we're actually not just robbing ourselves of the beauty of who we are, but we're robbing other people as well. And so it's one of the more unselfish things that you can do to learn who you are, to love who you are, because you're going to show up better in this world. You're going to have capacity to love others. You know, we talk about loving others as we love ourselves, but if there's not a lot of love in this tank, there's not a lot of love to give to other people. And so I think we're actually going around like this quasi love with other people, and we're trying to give something to people. We're trying to give love. And I think that's why we see a lot of breakdown in relationships. We see a lot of, challenges, because we're going at this place of trying to love other people with the energy that we're not even giving to ourselves. And so it's often not coming from an authentic place. And so being able to love ourselves and love ourselves deeply and fully accept ourselves, really super unselfish thing to do. It's a very, it's a gift that we can give this world to be able to do that. So, yeah.
So how do we start to build that love of self? Because I mean, it's great. I think we come in the world with it. We do love ourselves. We are self-interested when we come into this world. But as we grow, we're told, do, like you said, give to others, do for others. And we don't really take care of ourselves. And so it becomes so ingrained in us that I don't even think we understand what self-love means, let alone who we are authentically and what we should even like about ourselves. Like that inner critic, the negative bias, like we just go there. And I know I'm talking like, big picture, but like, I think this is bigger than just like this little circle of people. I think the majority of us go there or like that.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think you're so right that we are inherently born with love for self. And we get trained, we get programmed to see that as something that we shouldn't do. And I think it's just a lot of society. I think it's a lot of what is happening with others projecting their own shame on us. And so we begin to absorb that. It's definitely something that trauma does to us. Trauma, we talk about that trauma is not what happens to you, but it's what happens in you. And what happens in you is you make decisions, right? You make a decision about life. How is life? If this is how I'm being treated, then life must be unfair or cruel. Or if this is how other people are treating me, then I can't really trust people. And then if people are treating me this way, then there must be something wrong with me. And then how can I love this, which is being told or being shown that it's unlovable by the way that I'm being treated, or by the culture that says in order for you to be loved, you have to do X, Y, and Z. You have to show up this way. You can't be your authentic self. And so learning to love ourselves, I think first and foremost is realizing that it is programming. It is training. I remember a very distinct moment for me. I was in the shower, our shower thoughts, right? You're there and you're just kind of in that moment. And I was beating myself up after I just committed that morning to not do that to myself. And it was like, I realized in that second, it was just like this little gift that was given to me from my inner self, my higher part of me that said, you're addicted to beating yourself up. You have an addiction to shame. And I just paused and I began to really study that and realize that, addiction to shame, addiction to beating ourselves up, and addiction to being an inner critic, Makes a lot of sense when you realize that our thoughts produce chemicals, and those chemicals produce emotions. And then those emotions start a cycle of another thought and then another emotion. And so it gets this loop. We actually get addicted to feeling bad about ourselves. And so when I realized that, it totally freed me in that moment, because what I realized was it wasn't that there was something wrong with me. It wasn't that I was bad and unlovable. I was just trained a certain way as a child, as from society. And I'd become addicted, just like any other addiction, to a certain way of feeling about myself. And then if I could realize that, and if I was trained and addicted, then I could change that. Then I could heal that. And so I think that's the first place that we have to start, realizing that it's not that there's something wrong with you, that you're unlovable. You're trained, you're programmed, you're addicted to a certain way of feeling and thinking, potentially. And that's great news, because it allows us to use tools to change it. So.